I can remember many game over screens and many new attempts at trying to beat Jaws. And the frustration was real. Like Dad, I can remember him getting very frustrated, but determined. He was determined to beat it. And then one day, it happened. But first, a word about this video's sponsor, Raycon. You know what I love? Whether I'm out walking in my neighborhood or soaking in the beach breeze, I've always got video game music in my ears. And with my Raycon Everyday earbuds, they're not just functional, they look cool too. These blue Raycons feel made for moments like this. I mean, nothing beats blasting the Emerald Coast track from Sonic Adventure while literally walking along the coast. It's perfect. I'm stoked because one of their fan favorites is back. Better than ever, the Everyday Earbuds Classic now feature active noise cancellation. With 8 hours of playtime, a 32-hour battery, and 3 custom sound modes, they're my go-to earbuds every day. Editing, walking, or just vibing out. And with that water-style charging case, it's like they were made for beach days. They fit comfortably thanks to the gel tips, and the reliable button controls make it super easy to switch modes or take calls. So do yourself and this channel a favor. Head to buyraycon.com/myretrolife to get 20% off your own pair of Everyday Earbuds Classic. That's buyraycon.com/myretrolife. Links in the description and pinned comment. Thank you, Raycon, for sponsoring today's video. Dad must have bought the NES version of Jaws because I'm sure when we were first getting Nintendo games in early 1990, this was one that really stood out to him on the store shelves because Jaws was one of his favorite movies of all time.
Jaws, rated PG. Maybe too intense for younger children.
I can only imagine him, flipping through games at our local Toys R Us or Children's Palace. Back in those days, we used to shop at Children's Palace.
Children's Palace, that's where it's at.
I can imagine him seeing Jaws and immediately saying, well, maybe this can be a game for me. Dad was into video games, and, not every game had to be Super Mario Brothers or Mickey Mousecapade.
Wow! Oh, it's Mousecapade. Yeah, Nintendo!
I'm sure a more adult kind of Nintendo game was something Dad was looking for. And so, before I knew it, Jaws wound up in my humble collection back in 1990.
Hey, Tyler.
Hi.
Are these all your games?
Yeah.
While I played the original Jaws on NES quite a bit when we owned it, I think I actually watched my dad play it more. I don't know if it was because of Dad's love for the movie, or just because he was bound and determined to figure out how to play this game and get his money's worth. But Dad sort of became addicted to this game. I remember in this season, every night after work, he would come home and oftentimes he'd play this game, and on his day off, he'd be playing this game. So many times I watched him struggle. The repetitive nature of the game, the back and forth. I remember it feeling like, what are we supposed to do? What's going on? And then all of a sudden, you hit something. And you're thrust underwater in sort of a shoot-'em-up kind of segment. It feels like everything in the ocean is trying to kill you, and you haven't even met Jaws yet. A lot of the time you're wondering, where's Jaws? When am I going to encounter Jaws? Well, you do encounter Jaws. And guys, whenever Jaws showed up, I would hand the controller over to my dad. It didn't matter. I was not going to have it. That was a scary moment. Jaws had this giant life bar on the bottom right hand of the screen whenever you would encounter him, and it felt like your harpoons were getting nowhere, like you were not doing any damage to him. And so Dad knew that there was something to this. There had to be. There's a life gauge. There's got to be a way to kill Jaws. I mean, that's the whole point of the movie. And Dad wanted to relive one of his favorite movies ever and have that sort of vicarious feeling of killing Jaws the shark, just like Sheriff Brody did in the film. And I remember when it finally clicked. I think I was watching when Dad realized, oh my gosh, once you go to the seaport and get your upgrade, you need to travel back to the docks where you first shipped off. And then you need to head back to the seaport for another upgrade. All the while dodging Jaws in the open sea and hoping you can survive long enough. And once you've powered up your harpoon enough, you can then take down Jaws. And so Dad did it. He upgraded his harpoon to where it needed to be, and then he went after Jaws. The fin came up out of the ocean, and he attacked the monster. Now, you have to do this a couple of times because even though you're powered up all the way, it's going to take a couple of encounters with Jaws to whittle his life bar down. And I can remember the precise moment when Dad actually got his life bar completely down. He yelled, he hollered and was like, I did it, I got him, that's it, right? No, that wasn't it. For at that moment, it switches over to a brand new screen from an entirely different perspective. You're almost in a first-person perspective, right on top of the boat, looking out at the ocean. There's incredible parallax scrolling, really cutting-edge graphics, and even conceptually, it was really cutting edge to put this in an 8-bit Nintendo game like this. And we were really shocked. I remember being very surprised, and Dad too, being surprised that the screen even changed. So much of the game is repetition. You're doing the same thing over and over again until you get to that end screen, and it's the final battle. Basically a recreation of the ending of Jaws the Revenge, which at the time was the latest film in the Jaws franchise to come out. In this final segment, you have to maneuver the boat and line it up right with Jaws as he comes at you. And then when Jaws comes up out of the ocean to attack you, you have to hit the button at just the right moment so that the front of the ship can stab him. This can be kind of challenging. If you don't time it just right, you're not going to stab him in the right spot. But when you do, you've done it. And so I can remember Dad getting to this part in the game so many times and getting a game over on this segment. And it being so frustrating because at that point, you have to play the entire game over again. But that's the way it was back then, guys. It was trial and error. We didn't have the internet to just look at a video and figure out how to beat the game or do this section, watch somebody else do it. No, we had to figure it out ourselves, and that was part of the fun of it back then. And you felt so amazing when you pulled it off all on your own. The frustration was real. Dad, I can remember him getting very frustrated, but determined. He was determined to beat it. And then one day, it happened. He powered up the boat, drained all of Jaws' life bar, and got to that final section. And that is when it happened. Jaws was coming at him full force, and Dad lined up the front of that boat perfectly. When Jaws jumped up out of the ocean, Dad hit the button at just the right time, and bam! Jaws was dead. He took the big fish out. And it's really really rewarding, actually, what happens there. Like there's this moment you really feel the weight of the challenge of all of that just come off of you, because Jaws just dies. He floats down to the bottom of the ocean. I don't know if it was the Jaws theme playing throughout that sequence, but man, you felt just so victorious. And I can remember Dad being so happy that he did it. I think this was one of the very first Nintendo games that Dad ever beat. And really, Dad's love for the game didn't end with him beating it. Later that summer, my cousin Ryan actually was visiting us, and he was staying over at our house.
The winner of this race wins a trophy. You ready? Get set, go! Ryan's in the lead. Ryan's gonna win. Ryan wins.
Back in those days, my cousin Ryan was like the coolest kid I knew on the planet. He had this Tony Hawk haircut with the blonde swoop over one eye, and he was a skater dude. I remember Ryan even starred in a big red soda commercial back in those days. You couldn't get any cooler than my cousin Ryan. We spent those few days that summer going to the arcade, playing video games together. And while there's a lot of things I remember about that summer of 1991, that particular summer, Dad decided he wanted to introduce Ryan to Jaws on the NES. I feel like he had recently beaten it and really wanted to show Ryan the game and teach him how to play it. And so I remember watching my dad explain to Ryan how to play Jaws on NES, what you needed to do, how to get through it and upgrade your boat and make it to the very end where you fight the shark. To get to the end boss battle of any video game back in those days was such a triumph. And it was something that you wanted to see because you couldn't see it any other way other than doing it yourself and getting to the end. And so Dad probably said to Ryan, "You want to see the end of Jaws on NES?" And so they worked on it together. I can remember Ryan playing the game, and I remember being downstairs after numerous attempts of Ryan trying to beat Jaws on NES after my dad coached him. I can remember Ryan yelling from the upstairs bedroom where the NES was. I was downstairs with my mom, and I ran up the stairs to see what all the commotion was. Ryan beat Jaws, just like Dad had done it before him. And he did it with Dad's coaching. And it was so fun to see Ryan get so excited. I mean, I remember him being very excited that he beat Jaws. Back then, guys, you had to work for it. I tell you, it was one of these simple joys of life, beating an NES game. Man, those games were so hard. There's a reason why they're so well known and beloved to this day for being so difficult. They didn't hold your hand. You know, Jaws is a game that, honestly, it never appears on any top 10s or even top 20s for that matter. But for me, it's a special game. It's one of my favorite NES games, and I think it's really unfairly mislabeled as a bad game. Jaws is not a bad game. In fact, Jaws is one of the most memorable games of my retro life. And I think it's one of the rare instances where a movie-based game and a game that is notoriously known today as being a bad game is actually one of my favorites. The game was developed by Westone, but published by LJN. And I can only imagine that's really why it gets such a bad reputation, is because of LJN's name on it. But it really wouldn't be one of my favorites if it weren't for the memories attached to it, if it weren't for Dad's history with it, and Dad being able to beat Jaws on the NES back in 1991. It's one of those memories of summer and 1991, the year itself, that I'll always remember.
Victory!
You did it, huh?
Victory at last!
Did you win?
Yeah, got him!
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of my Retro Life, taking a look back at one of my favorite games on the NES, Jaws, and specifically the story of how my dad beat this incredibly challenging game in the summer of 1991. It was so cool watching him beat this game and drive the front end of that boat into the belly of the beast. And man, did it leave a memory. It left an impact on me, not just because of watching Dad do it, but then having my cousin Ryan do it not long after that. I'm telling you guys, video games was such a shared experience for us back in those days. And it wasn't just the heavy hitter titles. It wasn't the Super Marios and Zeldas and Metroids and Sonic the Hedgehogs. And no, it wasn't just those games. It was also games like Jaws, movie tie-ins with bad reputations on the NES. Even they left an impact and left a story to share. I want to know in the comments below if this game was one that maybe you guys had back in the day, and maybe some awesome stories were developed from it. Did you ever destroy and defeat Jaws at the end of the NES game? Let me know in the comments below. And if this is your first time to the channel, do consider subscribing. I love talking about my game crazy family and all the amazing adventures we had with video games, so many of which were caught on tape by Dad. Also, big shout out to my patrons over on YouTube memberships and Patreon. This episode was actually voted on by patrons as the next story episode to tell here on my Retro Life. So thank you so much for being a part of that and for the support.